Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Javier here with The Real Javier Novoa, a channel, a platform, and a modality where we apply the principles of philosophy, spirituality, mysticism, and a good dose of business sense to rapid lifestyle transformation. And a big video today following on the heels of yesterday's video, and following on this current and momentum of taking the principles that we've learned and that we're contemplating and developing here on the channel and applying them to the very specific purposes, the very specific path of rapid lifestyle transformation. As of transforming your lifestyle, of becoming independent of means, independent of a job, and a boss, because as we know, the situation of the times calls for that. I was reading more interesting economic news, just the very inflationary environment, and the fact that they're saying now Generation Xers, I believe, is it Generation Z or Generation X? I forget, but the one that's up and coming, they're not even making any pretense of being able to afford this full American dream of purchasing a house and so on and so forth. It seems now out of reach for that generation. And what we do in this channel is we teach you how to tap into the resources that are yours from the spiritual, that are your birthright, and to bring those into the physical as the miracle workers, as the prophets of old, and as the great men of genius and wealth do today. And whether they know it or not, whether they do it consciously or not. So I'd like to invite you, if you find value in this channel, you find our videos interesting, please subscribe and like below. Hit the subscribe button. Not only will you get alerts to the daily long-form videos that I'm putting out here, but you'll also join a community of people who are awakening and who are on the path to becoming master manifestors, who can pull anything from the spiritual to the physical, so to speak, in record time. So I'll give you a second to subscribe. Thanks so much for subscribing. We do appreciate it. So this video is just going to be sort of a free-form contemplation. I was contemplating today, ladies and gentlemen, that all of the great philosophies and spiritualities of mankind, if you look at Stoicism, if you look at the Islamic spirituality with which I am most familiar, if you even look at the Christian and Jewish spiritualities, it's always a question of resolving the tension of the divine reckoning and the divine predestination, what's called in Islam al-qada wal-qadr, and taking action in the physical according to probabilities. You'll find this in Christianity. For example, if you read the book The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius, who was an early Roman Christian scholar who was a politician and had been thrown into prison and was sentenced to death, and he wrote this book, The Consolation of Philosophy, which was basically an exposition on Platonism applied to adversity. And I'd recommend everyone read that, especially those who are going through adversity. But it touches a lot upon this as to what is the extent to which the future is known already, and what is the extent to which we can actually interfere and take action to change outcomes and circumstances. It's a very interesting current of thought, and it ties very well within the realm of manifesting and the issue of action or allowing that we've discussed many times and exhaustively, or probably not exhaustively, but in detail in many former videos, and perhaps we'll put links there in the description. But all of these modalities go into that. The Stoics talk about the sage, and I believe that the sage in Stoicism is not referring to an actual human being, but it's a composite that I think makes up the inner being, the subconscious, and the universal consciousness of mankind. They embody that in the terms of this sage. And the sage is said to know every happening that's going to occur in the future. He knows it ahead of time. But then the Stoics talk about anyone who's below the position of the sage has to operate in the realm of possibilities. And this goes into the question, well, what is the right action or non-action in a given moment to affect the outcome that we desire? But as we know from the great philosophers of law of assumption like Neville Goddard, we're to live in the end, and we're to know and be and abide in that end as if it were done, because it is done on some level of the universe, in some dimension. But then how are we to act on this film roll? That's where I think that the genius exposition of reality transurfing by Vadim Zeland helps us in all of these modalities. For example, the question of predestination or qadr in Islam. Well, it is known in the Islamic literature that everything is pre-written, and the Prophet, he said, khayruhu wa sharruhu, the good and the evil, everything is pre-written. But you can take action to affect outcomes. Well, how is that? There's also a hadith or a saying of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which says the only thing that can change the qadr is dua, or is supplication. And we know what true supplication and true prayer is. That is actually knowing that your prayer is answered before you get up from your prayer and actually abiding in that. That can change predestination. How is that possible? Well, the explanation that Vadim Zeland gives makes it possible, because everything on a trajectory or a film roll is predestined. But you can move to different film rolls, and the other film rolls have another destiny, another qadr. So therefore you can, in a certain extent, decide what destiny you're getting on. You can choose the end, and then you can abide on that path. But as we said yesterday, in order to do that, you have to take action on this film roll, or non-action. You have to relax, or whatever is inspired to you, and you have to apply some of the science of probability. Anything in order to get your energy off focusing on the struggle, so that you can save that free energy and then use it for getting on another film roll. I hope you understand me just a little bit. So, action does play a very important role in this modality, and it's never either or. And this is why we went into the early days of paradox and of multidimensionality. Remember, I was contemplating this very heavily today. We're multidimensional beings. In fact, we're living in eternal dimensions. And why is that? This is because we are the entirety of the universe, because there's in truth no separation. So we are in eternal dimensions. Therefore, we can focus on any dimension at will and get on that dimension. Get into that film roll. So we take action on this film roll to release energy, but we do it as a game. So every action that we're taking is a game. But now in that game, we want to play that game well. Indeed, we want to win at that game. We want to play that game in good form, and that is the advice that we give you for the action steps, for the processes of rapid lifestyle transformation, of getting into state, and of being in flow. And when you're in flow, no action will seem like action, and no action will seem like effort. So the question is, how do we choose right action when we're on a film roll? And we do it by cleansing our emotional countenance, so to speak, getting into that neutral state, and then being a receiver, if you will, of inspiration from the outside. But we're not always there. And that's why taking action that will shock us and taking action that will shake things up is another very important modality Because if you move the vibration, it will shake up, and eventually you will get to the vibration that you want. Or at least you'll break the stagnant vibration. You'll break out of that quicksand momentum. That's why we made a short today about taking some crazy action sometimes. If you look at some of the greatest, even military strategists, if you look at some of the great business strategists, oftentimes they would do what caught their enemy off guard. And the only way in this world of experts and of everybody having access to all of the information and data, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, any information that you have access to now, for the most part, unless you're insider trading, but that's quickly changing too with the advent of the digital economy and information traveling quicker than the speed of light, 5G, and so on and so forth, and ChatGPT. Everyone has access to the same amount, if not more information than you do. So if you're simply studying the information in a logical, linear fashion, well, everybody's doing that who's worth their salt, who's educated. So the only way you're going to be able to catch the competition, so to speak, even though we know there's no real competition, but in the game, the only way you're going to be able to catch the competition off guard is by taking spontaneous action, by taking action that's outside of the thinking realm, like the Zen masters taught, by doing it immediately, doing it intuitively. And I was just contemplating about this. Let's take action that is outside of our comfort zone and that breaks our comfort zone. Indeed, in law of attraction, law of assumption modalities, they always say expand your comfort zone. And that's true. But expand your comfort zone of taking sometimes outside of the box and unorthodox actions by practicing that more, by doing that more. Take action that will catch your enemy off guard and that your enemy is not going to expect. Don't think about the means too much. Just act, and then you can clean up later, because we know that we already have the end. And this is another point where living in the end and being in the state of what you want is going to help you. Because let's say you're in the state of being totally financially independent. Well, if you're already in that state, then you're living your life as if you're totally financially independent. Okay, so now that I'm totally financially independent, what will I do? Well, now I can start taking actions to play offense instead of defense, like I was talking about yesterday. Especially the financial and entrepreneurial game, it's all about playing offense. You can play offense now because you're totally secure in your knowing that you already have the end. So remember, live on multi-dimensions, already live interiorly on the film roll, on the state that you want to affect, and then just take actions on the outer, actions with a probability of getting you where you want, but also actions that will be outside of the box, that will shake up the status quo vibration, and that have the potential to net you great returns, especially in these uncertain times. So that's all for today, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be continuing tomorrow and the rest of the week on more detailed videos about how to get free from the prison grid, how to start charting your own course, and you're going to be free from a boss within the next 6 months to a year. So I am doing coaching calls where I can take you hand in hand in these modalities. You will make more progress in weeks than a lot of people make in years. It's a very exciting modality. We are having a lot of forward momentum. Join that group, join that community, and please do subscribe and like below. This is Javier with great love and affection. We'll see you tomorrow.